Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Now, today I am joined by somebody that's been a huge influence, not just on me, but on my son as well. Somebody that means a lot to both of us, the amazing Matthew Riddle. Matt, how you doing today, man?
I'm good, bro. I'm just chilling. Another busy weekday at the Riddle house. I got a couple kids myself and just busy. Just been traveling a lot wrestling. So it's been good though. It's been good.
And I know you've been super busy. We get to watch your highlights all the time, and it's super amazing to still be able to follow your career. And you are an American professional wrestler and a former mixed martial artist, but you also specialize in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And if I'm not wrong, you're also a teacher. Is that correct?
I do. I teach every Wednesday at Rudo's Jiu Jitsu down in downtown Orlando.
That's amazing, man. So I know that you got into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu around the age of 20. What made you want to go into that direction? Because especially at that time you were very young, there's a lot of different avenues you could go down. What made you decide to go down that one?
I wrestled in high school, wrestled in college, and I felt like some people had a shorter, stockier build, and they're just built better, kind of for like amateur college wrestling. And when I looked at jujitsu, I felt like I could use a lot of leverage and a lot of. And I felt like with college wrestling, I was limited. I felt like, oh, this is potentially dangerous. You can't do that. You can't choke here. And I'm like, I guarantee if I could choke this guy, I could pin him. It's like so I feel like jujitsu kind of was just like the evolution of like my amateur wrestling, and then into jujitsu, and then now and then into MMA, then pro wrestling. But I was always a huge pro wrestling fan, growing up, just like I'm a huge horror fan.
Right. And I was gonna say that, a lot of people know that you're a legit badass. A lot of people know that you are amazing on the mic and amazing in the ring. You could spell calibration better than almost anybody I've ever seen. But what a lot of people might not know is how much of a horror fan you are. And that's another reason that you and I connected. I seen that during a lot of your training videos, I seen you in the first one I ever seen you and you were wearing a creep show shirt. And
Yep.
you're not going to have very many, just uh, regular horror fans wearing a creep show. You got to be a pretty hardcore horror fan to go out and get a creep show shirt. So that's why I wanted to do this with you because you've been such a big influence on me and my son as well. He's somebody that really, really looks up to you. He's an amateur wrestler as well. And um,
Oh,
he was giving me stats about you. We talked about this in person. He was giving me stats about you and people that you had faced off and beat. And it was amazing, man, to know that you meant that much to him. And you, again, this is something I haven't shared on the internet, and I'm not going to get too much into it now, but you did an amazing thing for my son. And so, beyond all these interviews and beyond all the other things you've done, I just want to let it be known you're a great guy that did something very special for my 16-year-old son. So, I want to thank you one more time for that.
hey, thank you, bro. That means a lot to me too.
Yeah.
Not that I'm trying to per se be an inspiration in that sense, but at the end of the day, if you like work hard and do what you know and be you, you succeed.
And it was really good the advice that you gave him because, like I said, he's been watching your stallion workouts. He's been, even the one you did with Sheamus, and trying to build that upper body strength. And one of the quotes that you said in there that he's stuck with him is, "If you're gonna get gassed, it's better to do it in the training room than it is on the mat." You know,
Oh, always. I'd rather be tired in the gym than tired in the ring.
right?
So that's the worst feeling.
So, we talked about how you are a huge horror fan, and we actually met at a horror convention recently. And so I gotta know, we want to go back to the past here for a second, Matt, and talk about
Sure.
what it was that got you started in the horror genre, your first horror movie. And Matt, the first horror movie you watched was
The first horror movie I watched growing up, and probably the most memorable, but I wouldn't say it's like one of my favorites, but definitely one of the most memorable would have to be Leatherface. That was the first like real horror movie I watched. I watched it at my aunt's house on VHS, and it was like the first like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, not Leather, the
right.
the original Texas. It was like, and it almost like looked real, and it was just grungy, and the deaths were pretty quick. It wasn't over dramatized or anything, and then I started watching horror, but I'd watch like Ghoulies and all the in betweens and the Jason, and Nightmare on Elm Street. And but the next one, the first one that ever scared me, and I tell people this, and I have a friend and he busts my balls about it. But the first one that ever scared me for real was Candyman, the original Candyman, and they're playing like the opera music in between scenes. I was watching it with my parents. We rented it from it was an ET video in upstate New York. We rented it and we were watching it downstairs in the living room, and everybody fell asleep but me. So it was just a pitch black room and just the TV playing. And dude, and nothing. I'm allergic to bees. This guy's covered in bees, kills white people. It's just it was terrible for me as a little kid, not knowing what's going on in the streets from the country. And I'm like, Candyman is the most terrifying horror movie character going. And then I grew up and I was like, Candyman's pretty good. Oh, my light went out.
Well, and
You'll see me.
of the two, which one would you rather dive into? Would you rather dive into Texas Chainsaw or Candyman?
I mean, I'd rather dive into Candyman if we're gonna dive into one, but there's so many that we could dive into. I'm a huge like I probably watch a horror movie at least tonight. Like last night, I watched The Founders, which I think
Yeah,
is an older one, but I don't know. I just find them and watch them and say, "Oh, I haven't seen that one." And so yeah, I watch horror movies all the time. It's like my before I go to bed, usually throw one or two on.
yeah, man, it's a comfort
Yeah.
thing. It really is, and especially something like Candyman, because this is a movie that even back in '92 was breaking boundaries. They were
Yeah.
talking about things that we didn't want to talk about, like when Helen says,
Two people get brutally murdered and the cops do nothing. Whereas a white woman goes in there and gets attacked and they lock the place down.
Yeah, I know.
they were breaking those race barriers even back then, where today people would call it a dumb word that I hate. But it was also very, very scary on top of that. So, do you remember which scene it was from Candyman that scared you the most?
I believe it was one when there was like a kid on the toilet. There's a toilet scene. And that scene, just the idea of everything and that was the most terrible. Like that's why like Ghoulies was terrifying to me, but it was like kind of funny. But like, dude, after Candyman, I hovered a toilet for probably like 2 years
Well,
because
and the boy gets his dick cut off, you
yeah,
know?
yeah, dude, he sure
as,
does. He sure
as young
does.
kids, especially young boys hearing this, and they're, you see the boy laying there on the ground with blood all around him, and they're talking about how his dick got cut off in the bathroom. You're just like, whoa, hold on, wait a minute.
Yeah,
This is this is a little bit more than I bargained for here.
yeah. So when your parents fall asleep and you're watching that movie in the dark by yourself, and I don't know how old I was. What year did that movie come out? Like what
92.
92. So it's probably on VHS 93. So I was born in 86. So I was young. I
That
was
makes
young. But I was always a big horror fan. Like I was watching them since I was a kid. Even my kids watch horror movies all the time. I take them to the movies all the time. And that's what we do for fun. So, but yeah, it just intensified things.
and what I love about Candyman too is we just recently talked about this movie in depth, and you don't get a lot of Tony Todd throughout the movie, but when you get the Candyman, you get the Candyman.
You
When he's
sure
in
did.
that garage and you hear the
Helen, Helen.
that voice just completely wipes you out, like you're in that trance with her.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's not bad, and it's terrifying. And just the thing is, it's like it's weird about movies, but like especially horror movies, the in between scenes and then the next scene you show. Like I feel like, and I'm not gonna I'm not a critique. I'm not like a producer in it, but like some movies I feel like don't capture what you need. And I feel like Candyman, the original one, really not that the new one wasn't good. The new one was pretty good, but the original just it was scary. It was like dark. It wasn't like there wasn't like how can we overcome this? It was just like it was just dark, and then like I said, that opera music in between, just it just intensified the feelings and emotions going forward of like helplessness and like fear, you know.
The score in this movie is at Philip Glass did the score of this movie, and it is absolutely phenomenal. It really adds so much. Like when they're in the building and Helen and her friend are walking through the building and they go through that mirror and they come out the other side and it's a mural of the Candyman. And you see, his face and they're coming out of his mouth and that, those violins are swelling. Like you're seeing it, but you're feeling it and hearing it too. So it's really like, taking you from all sides when you're watching it, especially, because I'm the same age as you. I'm like 4 days older than you, bro. So like
Yeah.
I totally get where you're coming from. And I was lucky too. My parents owned a video store. We had a little mom and pop video store called Downtown Video. So if I did my job throughout the week, which was putting the VHSs in the V8, we didn't even have a VCR there. We had a VHS rewinder. And as long as we rewound the tapes, I got to take home a VHS and a Nintendo cartridge every week. So, seeing Candyman at that young age, we didn't understand all the political things that were going on. We just understood all the big scary shit that was going on. So,
Yeah.
we talked a little bit about the scene that affected you the most, being the kid in the bathroom. And I know it's been a long time, but did you have a favorite scene from this movie, or was that just kind of the one that really got to you?
That was the one that really got to me. Yeah, I mean, what at the end, how does it go? At the end, she's in the mirror, right? Like she's doing it now. So that was pretty cool. I would say that was a flip side because it seemed a lot of like it just seemed very brutal for her majority of the movie. And for her to kind of have like some kind of redemption is
Mhm.
pretty tight, you know?
Yeah.
Even
Well,
though it wasn't
because her
really.
husband was a complete dick, man. He's cheating on her with
Yeah,
one of his college students.
yeah. Well, you see, that's what made it like sadder too. Like usually that guy would have got murked off quick, but he didn't. Like he was a jerk and treated her horrible, and then like played a part in everything that happened. And then so when it came at the end, I'd say that part was probably the best because a little revenge is sweet.
Right. And it's coming too, because he's crying and he's looking in the mirror and he's saying, Helen, Helen, and you're like, just say it one more time. Please say it one more time. Then he does. You get her appearing right behind him. Like it's such a great scene. So we talked a little bit about, because obviously right now Hollywood remakes, requels, it's kind of all the rage. You said you did like the newer Candyman movie. Would you like to see them continue on this, or do you think this little sequel, requel was kind of a good ending for the franchise?
Well, I don't think it's ever a good ending when it comes to a horror movie. I feel like you can always squeeze another one out. Uh, but that's just me personally. Because sometimes, like the new Candyman was really good, and I think to some people it was probably better than the original. And times change, so it's kind of like a rendition. I feel like they shouldn't try to be like, "Ooh, 1980s it." I think you got to throw in that modern day flair.
Yeah.
But to be fair, like probably like the 1980s and 90s were probably the most epic time to have horror because like there wasn't like cell phones everywhere, there wasn't cameras everywhere. It was like, but like you still had enough technology and like things were like there was still enough going on, you know? And yeah, like I feel like that was like especially being a kid and being like growing up during that time, even probably being a young adult. But
Mhm.
like because it was like, your phone might not work. This could have like this stuff happens all the time. And it's like, well, today, like you have a cell phone, you have Wi-Fi, and like I feel bad for directors and producers because they got to work around and writers because you got to work around all that.
Right. And
But
that is got to be what, like, and they can use it to their advantage, like they did with the new Scream films. They took
yeah,
the technology and they really made it work. Sometimes it falls flat, but I agree with you. I think when you try to make a period piece from the 80s and 90s, like you have kids running around with walkie-talkies, still riding their bikes until the street lights come on, like we did when we were young. And like
it just
those are things I'm attracted to in a horror movie too.
me too, and it adds another element of fear. Even with the Stranger Things, they do that, and it's like it works because there's not all this technology that can like kind of nip things in the bud or help out. Like think about if something crazy happened, the amount of people that could be called and services and planes and jets and what, but when it's like the 19 like 70s or 80s, even early 90s, it's like way different, you know?
Right.
I mean, to be fair, it's probably like that now. Something really crazy happened. I don't know. You know, but that's just me thinking horror movies all the time, you know, like what if, you know?
And you're probably going to be a place where you don't have service anyway.
Yeah, you know, probably. And technically that's the thing. I was driving through what was it? Where was I this week? In Chicago? I was driving through Chicago and I had Verizon and I didn't have service through like half the city. And I'm just like, that's crazy, you know, like you'd think, you know?
Especially right in the city.
Yeah, well, I wasn't downtown. I was like suburbs, outskirts, but still, it's like,
Right.
you know,
Close enough.
yeah, yeah.
How funny is it? We're talking about Candyman, and you were just in Chicago, over there in Cabrini Green area. So,
I
uh,
was, I was.
we talked about how Candyman, Texas Chainsaw, Ghoulies, they kind of started horror for you. But here for a second, Matt, I do want to throw a little bit of a curveball at you. My little buddy Ghostface is here, and he has a question for you. What's
Sure.
your favorite scary movie, Matthew? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
Favorite horror movie has to be I'm a big Evil Dead guy. I love Army of Darkness. And I don't know, like I guess you would say Army of Darkness is probably like but like I even like the new Evil Dead, but I really enjoy like Ash versus the Evil Dead, the TV show, Evil Dead. And I kind of like that over the top gory. Like I love the new Terrifier franchise. It's amazing. It's an over the top slasher with a creepy, you know, it's great with the creepy killer. It's exactly what you want, you know, at least for me. Like, you
Right.
want an over the top slasher, you want something you can look forward to, like every year, like Saw back in the day. Like,
Yes.
it's almost seasonal. You're just waiting for it, you know, and even the new recent Saws were pretty good. I'm a big fan of the remakes, you know,
Yeah.
and more sequels.
See, and I agree with you. I think the last two, Evil Dead 2013, to me, is one of the best horror remakes of all time. Like, it's so intelligent. Like, they're going to the woods. They're not going to party. They're going to help get their friend off dope.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
and, like, you
It-
can't leave because we're going to get you clean. We're going to take care of our phones. It's just us, and they think that she's trying to wig out because she's trying to break when really all the evil shit's happening. So I thought Fede Alvarez did an amazing job
yeah. And it
working
was
with that.
and it was graphic. You know, they didn't sugarcoat it, and it
Right.
was the original Evil Dead. I feel like are now today's standards are a little campy, but like Bruce Campbell entertains me, and even in Army of Darkness, like all the lines he has, like just
Yeah,
crack up. I mean, I play all the video games. Actually, I always like would share their video game stuff before it came out, and they
yeah.
just hit me up and sent me like a copy of the game and everything else, and like the Book of the Dead and everything. So huge Evil Dead fan. So that's probably like my favorite horror franchise, and even the new one, Evil Dead Rise, right?
Loved it. Loved it.
It was great. And like I said, big fan of the sequel. I mean, if they could get Bruce Campbell in on that, I'd be super stoked because I'd be like, you know, I'd like to see him in a more serious, but like everybody else, and it's directed in a more like intense manner, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, if you could get even like the to get Evil Dead 2013, Evil Dead Rise, and then get Bruce Campbell and get all those three like protagonists together in like an Evil Dead metaverse. I mean,
Yeah.
'cause I loved Ash vs. the Evil Dead. I hate the fact we didn't get ending to that. Like
Yeah, well, they
that
had
bummed me
like
out.
a quick one. It wasn't, if I recall, like the last, it was done very quickly. I
Yeah.
remember it being kind of rushed, but that'll happen. You know, even like the Chucky series. I'm a big fan of the Chucky series,
Mhm.
and they might not be renewing it for a new season, or maybe they did. I know it was they were deciding yesterday or the day before or something, and it's like this is like I don't know. I've been watching Chucky forever, and like the show's pretty good.
Yep.
They've made it a way where Chucky can go into people's bodies, and he's split up into a couple different dolls and people or what have you. So it's like almost impossible to kill him. So it's like all you can basically do it forever, and just adding new people, and they do like little skits. It's entertaining, you know.
Child's Play is my favorite horror franchise.
Yeah,
Um,
they're killing it. I think they're killing it.
yeah, I love it. Like for me, it's always been Child's Play, the Saw franchise, and the Evil Dead franchise. Like those are my three that I always find myself going back to the most. But I know I didn't say it at the beginning, guys, but I do have all of Matt's social media links down in the description. I also have links where you can get his merchandise. You could also get his sandals. I have a brand new pair that are coming my way soon with
Yeah,
SH Horror right down the side of them, man. So I can't wait for you guys to check those out. You know I'll be posting pictures. So make sure you're following him on social media. Make sure you're checking out the store. Make sure you're getting your Matthew Riddle merch. Now, before I let you go, Matt, we always bounce back to the same question.
yes.
We're going to go back to Candyman, and what we're going to do is rank this movie on a skull count. Now, we're not going to rank this movie on acting, production, score, nothing like that. We're not being critics. All we're doing is ranking Candyman on how much it affected you on your first viewing. So, 0 skulls being not effective, 5 being extremely effective. You can use half and quarter skulls anywhere in the middle. Matt, what would your ranking of Candyman be?
It's a 5. It's a 5. It resonates. It scares me anytime anybody mentions it. It had that effect on me. It was the first, like I said, I was like terrified to use the bathroom for years. Definitely don't say Candyman in a mirror. Like, and my brother would always, people would mess with me, parents, everybody. You
And
know,
it
so
it holds up so well.
yeah. And imagine your kid's scared and you're an adult and you watch it, you're like, it's just a movie.
Right.
But as a kid, I was like, oh, dude, like I used to be afraid of like Michael Myers when I kick in like my door. It's like,
Right.
why would you be out here? But you never know. But Candyman was a 5.
Oh, and it still is. Like I said, we just reviewed it recently, and that'll be coming out in a little bit, guys. So stay tuned for that. Um, I do again want to thank you, Matt, for coming on and hanging out with
Hey,
me for a little
for
bit.
having me, man. Sorry, I know we did it a little late tonight, but
Dude,
just yeah,
if that's the
hey,
worst thing that happens today, it's going to be a damn good day. So,
awesome.
I know you're a very busy guy, man. And like I said, we've been trying to make this happen for a while, and we've just been missing those connections when they've happened. So to have you here is amazing. But please don't go anywhere. I do got a couple more questions I'd like to ask you.
Sure.
Um, Everyone else, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. It does help build the channel more than you know. And follow Sledgehammer Horror as well. Our links are down in the description. But until next time, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.